So like I said, let's pretend like we're done with this side, so I'm actually going to just trim it off. Now to work on the other side, you're going to flip it over, and it's likely going to be all funky where you're holding it in your hand. So I'm going to teach you how to undo a coil that's not right. First of all, we've got this whole entire length here, so instead of working down here, I'm going to now slide it down to the other end, making sure that my core wire is nice and straight. I've got a little kink in the wire here. If I coil up and over that kink, I don't know if you can see it, the coil will bind to it and I won't be able to move it. So I really want to make sure to get that kink out. It's a little bit better. Okay, so slide it down here. And to undo this coil, instead of just loosely going like this and having it come off really, really kinked up, as you can see there, let me put it back on where it was. I'm going to undo it by pulling really hard. I'm going to essentially be pulling my hands away from each other as I do it, and it will pull it off straight. So right there, and tighter. Straighter, that is, but not totally straight. You can see the difference there. It's pretty kinked up from undoing it the first time. So I'm going to come in with my nylon jaw pliers and straighten it, and then just continue on. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of nifty tools that make this a little bit easier, because holding the wire in your left hand here is actually the hardest part of coiling. So this is your stabilizing hand, and this little motion here of having to pinch it really hard to keep it still can really injure your hand. Trust me, I've been through hand therapy. It's not fun, not cheap. So you can use your nylon jaw pliers and hold it there if you wish. Just keep in mind, if you're using the nylon jaw pliers, hold it as far back towards a box joint as you can while still being on the nylon, because that's a part of the plier that shuts first. So that's the strongest part of your plier. You won't have to squeeze as hard to hold it still. If you hold it way out here, you're going to have to squeeze really hard to hold it still. As far as positioning on your hand, a lot of people hold pliers still like this, and that's really hard to hold it as tight as possible. Use the leverage of the long handle and put your hand way back here. Then you won't have to squeeze as hard with those two tricks. You won't have to squeeze as hard to hold the coil still. You know, you won't be causing more tension in your hand, and then you can just coil on. The other tool you can use, which I actually prefer and I use a lot, is a ring clamp. Just insert the coil into the clamp, clamp right down on top of the coil. That's where people go wrong. They just clamp down on the core wire. You clamp down on top of the coil, just like you did with the nylon jaw pliers. It's not going to hurt it. Put the wedge in pretty snug. Now this will do all the pinching for you, all the holding. All you have to do is hold it in your hand so it doesn't fall on the floor, really. And just coil from there. Okay, so there's a loose coil right there. It's like a big boo-boo. Can you see it? Let's take the ring clamp off. Our goal here is to get the coils nice and tight like up here, not loose like that. So again, to undo, I'm going to hold it really tight as I turn it backwards, and then just continue. I want to put the clamp back on. With thinner gauge wires, you can cheat and pinch them together like this. Like a 24 gauge or thinner will likely do that, but 22 gauge and thicker, you can't really do it. It just bounces right back out. Putting in the clamp, the wedge. So I'm going to back the camera up for one more demo, because I want to show you one more thing about how to deal with this wire, and then you're ready to coil away. One more thing I forgot to mention before is that when coiling, you need to make sure that this entire wire, the tail of your wire that you're working on, rotates with every single coil. If it sits still, or you just have it sitting on a spool, or maybe it's caught on your chair, if it sits still over here and you're coiling over here, you're actually twisting the wire somewhere in here, which will harden it, and you'll either have a hard time coiling it once it comes up, or it might snap. So make sure that this rotates. Watch this tail as I coil it, and watch it rotate around. You see that? Don't let it get caught on your arm or on your sweater. Make sure it rotates every time around. As you need more space for the coil, and as you build a longer coil, you're going to need to shift up your ring clamp and coil away. So this was just a quick and dirty on coiling by hand. There's lots of tools that you can also use to aid in coiling, like the coiling gizmo or other tools that clamp to the table, and it sort of has a crank. Those are a little bit easier because it turns the core wire, you can feed up directly off of a spool, so that's nice too. But a lot of times I just need a short coil, so I'll just do it by hand real quick. Have fun with coils. There's tons of things you can do. I incorporate coils into almost all my designs. Make a big long coil, coil it again, make it into a bead, cut up the coils, treat them as beads in your stitching projects. I mean, there's so much stuff you can do. So have a great time. Bye.